So I'm recording now.
Just wanted to see if you're back there.
Behind the wall.
You got to do that. I know. Sorry.
We're recording. We're good.
I think we are ready to go. But we don't have a quorum, but
You don't need a quorum.
we don't need a quorum. All right. We'll make them watch it. All right. All right. I would like to call this meeting to order. We're going to have a presentation from the Housing Gap Coalition. So, who's up?
Me.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. I'm Abby Osborne. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy and Government Relations for the Salt Lake Chamber. Salt Lake Chamber is the statewide chamber of commerce. We have a membership in all 29 counties. We have about 1,200 members across the state and represent the state on public policy and advocacy efforts. So I want to take you a little bit back to why we actually are doing what we're doing and why we're here today. So please just let me know when time's close to being up, because I do want to have a little bit of time for a discussion.
Okay.
So about a year and a half ago, we had a number of businesses come to us and start to express concern about the fact that their employees, both recruiting in and employees here, were having a hard time finding housing. Not affordable housing per se, but housing in general. And we started to dig a little bit deeper on the issue and realized that we always run things with data behind in our back pocket. So we commissioned a study with the Kaysville Gardner Institute, and in May it was released. It was about an 8-month process. They went through and looked at the generation before us, the generation we're in now, and generations are a 26-year time frame, for those of you that don't know, and the generation to come. And looking at all of our housing, what we can expect, what we've been through, and really what's taken place. One of the things that came out in the study is that for the first time in 40 years, we have more household units, so family formations, however you look at family formations, than we do actual households. So you can see the gap there. I'm showing you a very condensed version of the PowerPoint. We did send you a full version of the PowerPoint slide with all the data. So if you would like some more homework after you go home tonight. We essentially do not have enough housing in the market right now to meet the demands of our growth that we have today, and we certainly don't have enough to meet the demands of our population growth. And for that reason, we have a housing shortage. And this creates what our chairman, and I'll explain this in a minute, who's Steve Starks with the president of the Larry H. Miller Corporation, deems as our biggest economic threat that really no one has been talking about and no one's really addressed. And it's really the gap between what people can afford and what's on the market in all socioeconomics. The report showed that 1 in 8 Utahns are spending more than 50% of their household income on housing. That's about to change. In about the next 5 years, 1 in 5 Utahns are going to be faced with paying more than 50% of their income on housing. So the value of a home in the Wasatch Front in 1991, the average price of a home was $125,000. Today, the average price of a home is $347,000. Compare that to the nation, whose average price of the home in 1991 at $125,000. The average price of a home now on the nation front is $187,000. We are the 4th fastest growing market in the nation on housing prices. And you know the story of the other parts of the United States, certainly in the West. It's primarily in the West, Bay Area, Seattle, Portland, that really cannot call themselves affordable anymore. We're on the cusp of becoming one of those. I wouldn't say that we're at a crisis right now, but we're certainly, facing it. So Natalie Gothner, who many of you probably know and are aware of her work, she's the president of the Kempsey Gardner Institute, runs the institute. She calls this a landmark study, and it's the first one in the nation. You can find it on our website. You can find it on their website. I would encourage you to at least read the highlights, because it'll probably keep you up at night for a while, but it's certainly got a lot of information, and the first one in the nation. Part of the study showed us that if left unaddressed, if unchecked, this is the conservative number of the average price of a home by 2044. That's the average price of a home right now in the San Francisco Bay Area. The highest number was $1.2 million. So we took the conservative number and are showing you that today. So to think that our kids and our grandkids, who are 2/3 of our population growth, I'll remind you, it's not people coming in here. That's not the majority of our population growth. It's our kids that we are growing here and want to stay and live here because of the quality of life that you've all created for us and that we really like and appreciate. They will be priced out of the market. Many people are priced out of the market today, but this very much affects the next generation. So let me give you some stats. Teachers. The first-year teacher can afford 1% of the housing that's on the market today in the Wasatch Front. 1% a first-year teacher. Where are our teachers, our police officers, our firemen, our nurses, the people that we need and want in our communities going to live if we don't start to address this? So, what's driving up housing costs? Number of things. We talked about the shortage. We can talk all day about construction and labor costs. I can get into immigration and trade, but I'm not going to waste your time with that today. But that is a huge component of what's driving up costs. Certainly, we have local zoning ordinances that are affecting this, and NIMBYism, which is essentially coined not in my backyard. They understand it. They just want it somewhere else. Land cost and really where we're located with the mountains, the lakes, and then, as I described, the economic growth and the prosperity that we're seeing. So what now? So after we got the study, a number of our business leaders came together and said, we've got to wrap our arms around this. Let's work together with the League of Cities and Towns. Let's work together with our MPOs. Let's figure this out as the business community with local government. Let's go solve this problem. We're never going to go backwards. We're never going to go back to the 80s when it was, we had a lot of land to continue to sprawl because we don't have that advantage anymore. But let's go try to address it. So I mentioned that Steve Starks is our president and CEO of Larry H. Miller Company. He's our chairman of the GAP, along with Clint Betts, who's the president and CEO of the Silicon Slopes Initiative. So what are possible solutions? Possible solutions that we see right now, really easy. Make sure you're utilizing the TLC program with the Wasatch Front Regional Council. There's grants out there. They'll go help you do your land use and zoning according to your transportation needs. It's so critically important that we're not suggesting density pops up everywhere. It needs to pop up in the right locations with the right transportation that coincides with it. So they can certainly assist you in the zoning of transportation and housing. We're going to launch, to try to address the construction and labor problem, we're going to launch a Build to Success program. You're probably familiar with the Keys to Success program through the Garf Foundation. This will be a Build to Success program to get out into our younger generations to help them understand what the benefits are of this type of industry. We have the lowest number of people, and I know Councilman Garn understands this because of the business he's in, but we have the lowest number of people in the industry right now than we ever have. And it's a really misconception out there. A journeyman plumber right now, we found out a few days ago, can make upwards of $140,000. These are not bad jobs. These are great jobs, great careers. And then another thing that we're going to do, and we're actually partnering with the League financially on this, is to get some public awareness. So we're going to work with Y2 Analytics on some focus groups. We're going to launch probably $1 million campaign in the coming months to get out and educate people on the problem using the data, and then using the research from Y2 on what's in the hearts and minds of the general public, because we know that at the heart of this, it's the fear of population growth and their quality of life changing. And if we do this in a smart way, we can nil those problems. We can definitely help to make sure that we're growing in a smart way and that we can all enjoy the quality of life that we have. So next steps, again, the campaign will launch here in a few months. I want to congratulate you on something. You are one of very few cities that actually are complying with state law right now on the moderate income housing plan. So it was HB 259 that passed last year that we passed, our first attempt to make sure that all communities across Utah look at their housing plans and make sure they have a balance of all different types of housing and how you're going to address it. You have turned in your plan, and it's up to date. So thank you for that. The one thing I will tell you is that continue to do that. Continue to make it evolve. I'm looking at the old, I used to live in Kaysville about 5 years ago, but the old grocery store. What's your plan? How are you going to redevelop that area? How are you going to redevelop some of these old commercial spaces? I heard you, I wasn't eavesdropping, but I did hear you talk about Old Main Street. You know, just looking at the future of your community and what the future of Kaysville looks like to help address some of these problems, because we do not have the ability to have acre lots anymore in all of our communities. We can't continue to develop in that way. We have to figure out how we actually zone so we have a mixed use of development in all of our communities in the right location. I'm not suggesting that you put a apartment complex in the middle of your, established bedroom communities, but let's put them in a place where there is transportation infrastructure and there is the ability to get people to and from locations right off I-15, close to your main street. So that's essentially who we are, what we're doing. You can read the report right there, and you have this, so you don't need to write it down, but you can follow us on Twitter and see what we're doing. We are visiting every city in the Wasatch Front between now and the end of the year. You're number 6, so you made it in the top really high percentage. So thank you for having us. But what I wanted, and I don't know how much time I have left, but can you just talk to me about what you're doing, what you're feeling, how you're trying to address this? I know you were talking about it earlier, and thank you for being aware of it. We're hoping to give you some cover with awareness to the general public, because we really don't think people understand this. They don't understand that everyone has to take a bite of this, and really we got to work together on it. So
thanks.
Love to hear from you.
Yeah, and I do believe that Kaysville residents, people who grew up in Kaysville want to stay in Kaysville. And so we already do have some awareness of the lack of housing options for those particularly first starting out. They're looking for ways to stay in our community and having a hard time. So I do know that there's an undercurrent already that is aware of this.
We call those the YIMBYs, the yes in my backyard. Just so you know.
Good. Well, we'll categorize them. Council members, Councilmember Garn, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess I would just say it's very interesting. So I'm very sympathetic to the arguments, and actually we talk about sometimes the land being the limit. It's actually going to be water far before that. And we have something like $32 billion that needs to go for new and replacement of existing infrastructure. And water costs and water availabilities, particularly in drought years, is going to be huge too. So I completely agree. We can't continue to have half-acre or larger lots of Kentucky bluegrass. It's just not going to work.
Right.
And it doesn't really matter what we do in this body, because we'll either plan for it and then have a better outcome, or we'll not plan for it, give in to NIMBYism, And we'll have the worst of all worlds because the market will force us to pay attention if we don't pay attention and plan before then.
Yeah.
I could get into a lot of details, but we don't have that much time. So
You certainly could, and we're seeing it in California. I mean, the state just took over all zoning regulation from their locals because of that very problem that the councilman just described.
Interesting. Councilmember Barber.
So we're trying to look at our general plan and the zoning that we have and how we can adjust and accommodate for more and different types of housing. Some of the questions I have is if we have large-ish size, still developable areas, which we don't have a lot of in our city, if we were to drastically change those to a more dense zoning than we've traditionally had, which I think we're learning, we have to be creative. How do we foresee the impact that that'll have on the city? I think about schools that will have a huge influx that they weren't planning for. How do we prepare for that and accommodate?
You know, it's kind of the $1 million question, but we know that this population growth is coming, and so we know we're going to have it somewhere, somehow. We're either going to, have it in the basements, and even if you don't have the law or the zone that actually allows for it, people are going to be forced to live like that, and it will change our schools. It's going to change our, the way our churches are zoned and our stakes are actually looked at, and we've just got to be okay with it ultimately, and we've got to make people aware that let's do it. And to Councilman Garn's point, let's do it in a way that we can all live with, and that's smart. I wouldn't suggest zoning in like everywhere to density, but even quarter-acre lots instead of your when I lived here, I lived in a 3/4 acre lot subdivision, and I think about it now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just crazy. But you have a lot of them here, and they're built out, and it's there's nothing we can do about it now. But there is the redevelopment of old places like the grocery store. There is is there an RDA zone that you can put into place to look at purchasing? And I know you're probably going to need tools from the state to address some of this stuff. But raise the awareness, work with the league on some of the tools, because we want to make this as much carrots and less sticks that we possibly can. Just zone in a way that you think and you feel like is in the best interest of trying to address some of this population growth that we have. To the mayor's point, your people want to stay here. Oh, yeah. So let's give them options to live here.
Councilmember Page.
Yeah, hey, just an observation. I know that, and all these are, and I understand where everybody's coming from. I guess the concern that I have is I can see a swelling of, everybody likes to point fingers, and everybody, they want to, it's so easy to have everything so black and white. Mm-hmm. And, my wife every year drags me to the Parade of Homes, of course, and every time it costs you a fortune. Yeah. Not to go there, but when you come home, you have to remodel.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but, I noticed in the Wasatch Builders here in Davis and Weber County, they had an article right inside there. It says, "Fighting for affordability." And they said unfair impact fees from government agencies serve as a tax on homeowners throughout Utah. And then they went on, and I've read the Kim Gardner report as well, and they said in Utah nearly 25% of the cost to build a home is tied to government regulations and fees. Well, I can tell you, I'm a contractor. I'm a developer. That's hogwash. It truly is. There's
not the other side of the story there, where you use your impact fees, how you use them, and why you need them.
And it's not 25%.
No.
That's, and I guess the concern I have is I can see the legislature and where they're going, and to be honest with you, a very high percentage of the state legislature and the Senate and the House are developers, real
builders,
estate agents, contractors. Sure. That's who they are. Mm-hmm. And in fact, almost all the leadership, that's who they are. Mm-hmm. And I guess the rumblings and the concern that I have is and now they've gone on to a campaign of saying, well, the reason we don't have affordable housing is because of greedy governments that's, charging all these fees and all that. Well, that's nonsense. The facts are those expenses are going to come no matter what. And I guess
and they're only going to increase.
And the thing is when they put in a development, there's a huge impact on the city. And I guess what we have to do as a group, we have to determine, well, what's the best way to handle that? The cost is going to be there. If we eliminated all of our impact fees and everything else, the cost is still going to be there, but it's going to be spread out to all the citizens of Kaysville. And other cities will have the same problem. I guess, what are we doing to make sure that we're not hijacked in this way and that there's going to be a big fight? Because I can see it coming.
Yeah, no, there's a definite effort on our part to make sure that, and one of the reasons we're here, and one of the reasons we're in partnership with the League of Cities and Towns is, this is, from our perspective, this is not an attempt to poke you in the eye by any sense, and it's not all on you. And hear me loud and clear, it is not all on the cities. The report shows that there's many, many factors. There's many communities that don't do it well, quite frankly. And they give those of you that do a black eye. And so until we raise the awareness, until we get out and say, hey, you've got to have a moderate income plan. And you've got to look at your general plan. And you've got to make an effort, an attempt to build your communities out and redevelop your communities for those communities that are already built out in a way that helps to start address this. And until you do, there's always going to be this black cloud over cities. And so let's figure this out together. Let's work together. I mean, we were in Draper 2 last week, and this was a harder conversation than I'm having today. We've just got to make sure that all cities are working together, and they're kind of taking their load, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, and I truly appreciate what you're trying to do, and I think that's extremely important. And I think education to the people is very important, and
Okay.
And I think there's going to have to be some really tough choices. I'll be honest with you, unless you got millionaire parents who are giving you, Kaysville has lost its affordable housing. It doesn't have it here.
Yeah.
People can't afford it here. All my kids want to live here in Kaysville. They don't live here in Kaysville because they can't afford it.
It's true.
And it's just the way it is, and a lot of it is our choices, what we made a long time ago, and it seems to just hold and hold and hold. And
I guess my last point would be that, look to the next generation. We so much looked right in front of us for so long, and let's make sure that we're looking to the future here and do some great things. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to answer a lot of constituents in here, but we're hoping to give you the data, the facts that you can use when you're making the decision, when your planning commission is making these tough decisions.
Well, we appreciate your efforts.
Okay. Councilmember Hanson.
Just one concern I guess I have is, even if we address this, I can just tell the example. When the downturn in the market, I moved here in 2013. Destination Homes built, redeveloped an old hotel, which had a bad name. I think we all remember that. You could get into those for the low hundreds.
Yeah.
But it's almost, I guess in my mind, now you can sell those same, are selling over 200.
They sure are.
Now, do we just make ourselves an undesirable city? I mean, the demand is driving this up, and this is one of the problems that we're a balanced budget state, have a growing economy, people are demanding to come here. We can do this with our remaining developable land, but it's only going to help the first, and I don't doubt the people, we can do it, they can be affordable, they'll wait a few years and sell it to someone else, and then we're just with the same problem again. So I'm just worried about, I don't like I don't know. I'm just not seeing this happen at all. It'll just recur. We're just pushing off the inevitable. I mean, I guess unless we make ourselves just a state that's undesirable. Let's go into debt. Let's be unfiscally sound. Let's not grow.
And that certainly doesn't work for our neighbors to the west. So by no means are we suggesting that. I think the first thing we've got to do is close this gap and continue to have enough on the market in a smart fashion. And really it is about density to close the gap, because we had a housing crisis in the late 90s, and we had the ability to continue to sprawl. We don't have the ability to have pop-up Eagle Mountains anymore. We're running out of developable land, and so we've got to close the gap. The gap comes with being smarter about our acreage making sure that we're, thinking about commercial spaces that can have homes on, up above, looking at all of our development that is just blacktop asphalt and surface parking lots, and how do we have mixed use there? Really thinking about this in a smart fashion, making sure you have transportation. I mean, you guys need to be pushing on good, smart transportation options up here. Your citizens passed Prop 1 a few years ago, and they did it because they expected, transportation choices up here. So I know this because I ran that campaign. So
Or the roads to be fixed. One or the other.
potholes to be filled and your sidewalks to be fixed. All of that. All
Yeah.
of that. So, yeah.
All right, Bryn, thank you so much.
Abby. That
You're
is
Abby.
Bryn.
Bryn.
But
I just looked
she's
at my
awesome
thing.
too, and she's our point.
Abby. Sorry.
Kind of our tag team here.
I
I
think
will
Bryn, too.
leave you with this information. You guys can peruse it, but all of our information's on the website.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll start our city council meeting. Anybody who's here, if you want to speak to council, our public comment period is at the end of council meeting. You need to sign up on the sheet that is out in the hall. All right?